I can think of no more fitting way to spend October 31st than in the bowels of this burning hellhole known as West Harbor High School, typing my heart out on this infernal machine against an evil deadline and under the sternly disapproving eye of the designated hag, Mamie. As befitting the holiday, she has come to school costumed as her idol, the screen comic Charles Chaplin. She could have spared herself the expense of the bowler hat and cane and just come as a dock worker. Here she comes now.
Top drawer party Saturday night, Dawson. You had to have been there, except you weren't. After all, it was for the city kids, and you do live so far out. We had quite a time of it here in Harborview, where we'd had the benefit of electricity and running water. How do you celebrate Halloween out where you live?
The other County Road urchins and I are planning to hang and burn Chaplin in effigy before terrorizing the countryside. Care to join us?
Is that supposed to be funny?
Is this supposed to be a newspaper?
What does that mean, may I ask?
It means, Mamie, that maybe if you spent a little less time planning top-drawer Halloween parties for city kids, the West Harbor bulb might not be dimming so visibly.
How dare you?
I'm Nancy Dawson. I dare anything.
I had to sock you in the jaw. You know, you'd best get comfortable behind that typewriter, as I'm certain you'll make a splendid stenographer one day.
I'm pretty sure that Ida Tarble never behaved as you do, Mamie. Ida Tarble would spit in your eye.
Why, you?
Nancy?
Jake, hello. What can I do for you?
I need to talk to you.
Excuse me, but she's on my time.
Privately.
Annex, the continuing story of a peculiar bend in the avenue. Traffic goes north, traffic goes south. The streetcar runs between. And all we can do is try to keep up.
Rich girl, poor girl, suffragette, waitress, milliner, farmerette.
Are you going to buy that rice?
Schoolma'am, actress, stenographer, musician, trained nurse, dressmaker.
Loafing on your old mother's dime.
Bookkeeper, housemaid, author, clerk, telephone girl, and a lazy smirk.
I like the last one, Lois. That's you all over. Do you know any rhymes about wasting time?
May I remind you, Ma, that I was supposed to work for Diana today and I'm only here helping you because she gave me the day off, and you're worried that the entire populace of Harborview is going to descend by late afternoon.
Pumpkins have sold real nice. We have our work cut out tonight with carving back home.
Fantastic. The veil lifts between the dead and the living, and I'm stuck stabbing gourds with you.
That's the spirit. Did Jake tell you where he was last night? He slipped out late. For Halloween mischief, no doubt. I don't suppose he has a young lady. Lois, do you think he has a young lady?
I've barely seen Jake this week except at breakfast. Besides, he doesn't talk to his big sister about girls, much less Nancy Dawson.
The Dawson girl? Do you really think so? Oh, her father's a fine man, and Nancy is quite the young lady.
Respecting my brother Jake, I'm changing the subject. So where are these throngs of customers supposedly coming from? Are you expecting a riot? It's 1 o'clock, give or take, and all is well.
The rush is yet to come, and we both know it. Oh, what have we here? Let's see you before I shell out any treats.
I think this is a Halloween holdup.
A cowboy and a vagrant and a voodoo doll.
She's a clown, Ma.
Little voodoo doll. Here you are, children, some candy and nuts. That's it now. Happy, happy Halloween, children. Mind the streetcar.
You were right about that clown. She did look like a voodoo doll. What was her mother thinking?
Your mother was just thinking back, remembering when you and your brothers were small at Halloween. Oh, there were always such costumes, and all of it improvised from precious little. You children never failed to surprise me.
You dressed me in one of your sack dresses and worn-out hat and sent me as Olivia Jr. one year. That was a low point.
We'd gather by the fire, and Lois, you'd tell us such ghost stories. You had an imagination. And Horace, he'd provide such fabulous musical accompaniment to your tales. You two really made quite the team. You could have done vaudeville. But, of course, Horace's musical talent held a higher calling.
That's right, Ma. And I'm a saloon girl.
Oh, stop. You know I do wish that Horace could join us here in Oregon, now that we're all settled here together.
Oh, no, that's really scary.
What? Lo?
Nothing.
Why shouldn't I wish for Horace to be with his family? Do you think it is good for him to be out there, no family, just lost in a sea of strangers?
He's gotten along quite happily without us for years now.
Which is my point exactly. You barely know your own brother. And this after you two were so very close growing up.
Ma, I'm close to Jake. I was never close to Horace. We had very little in common.
Now that is not true. Not true at all. You two used to put on those little plays and musical programs for me. That was my lifeblood in those years when your father was sick and after we lost him and I took over the shop. Why can't I wish to have all three of my children here at home on Delaney Avenue?
Jake was a baby when Horace left for school. They never even really lived in the same house. They're strangers with nothing in common.
And don't you think it's time we did something about that?
No, I don't. I really don't. I think we should let him live the life that Horace wants to live, and we should live our lives and be happy. Let's not force a family that doesn't exist.
I'll write to him to come for Christmas.
You always do, and he always has something better to do. Even when he agrees to come, he changes his plans at the last minute, and you're devastated. And Jake and I pay for it, too.
You're very cruel at times, Lois.
I'm sorry, Ma. I don't set out to be cruel. I just want you to be realistic and not get your hopes up about some tremendous family reunion out here in Oregon.
Oh, nuts to that. I'll never give up on my family, and I'll never give up on Horace. How beautifully he plays that harp. You'll see I'll bring my boy Horace to Harborview yet.
You said you wanted to give me something, Jake? What is it?
I guess the quarter is private enough. That must have been Mamie.
That was she, of loathsome reputation.
I hope she finds her whale someday. Look, I have something for you. But you can't tell anyone how you got it, or I'm in serious Dutch.
What are you talking about?
Okay, so after you told me about your dad's suspicions of Donovan, and then we followed him, and you had your little instincts about him, but seemed so frustrated, I followed a Jake Chilton hunch of my own.
Doing what?
Don't spread it around, but I let myself into the Shackelford Company offices last night.
Jake Chilton!
Quiet. Look, I went out last night and Ma thinks I was out throwing eggs and soap in windows. Instead, I used all of that as cover to try and get you some hard evidence.
Jake Chilton, I could kiss you. But I won't. How did you get in there?
It was a lousy lock. Anyway, most of the stuff seemed pretty standard, at least until I found his locked drawer and got it open.
How did you get it open?
It was a lousy lock. Nancy, you and your father are right on the money. This guy keeps a file on your neighborhood. He's got maps of your house, mine, the Pembrokes, Ma's store, all of it. He's studying up on us the way we study up for J-Hole's history exams. Check this out.
This is a reproduction of a fire insurance map of our neighborhood. That's Delaney. My house, yours. Why are they circled in red? What are these measurements? Why is he interested in your mother's lot and father's?
Nancy, I don't think he's just after Diana. He's after all of us. He wants our neighborhood. We've been marked for annexation.
It was like that all the way to the church. It was the way she had always gone, so many Sundays before. But something seemed off. It was still dark out, but it was not uncommon that time of year. Your Aunt Tildy went to such early church services in the neighborhood where she lived. Well, she kept going, and she reached the church, and it was full. The service had already begun, so she found a seat. Tildy hated to be late. She was usually very punctual.
Did the ghost tell them where to dig to find the money?
Lois, that's a different story.
So what happened? before the 2 o'clock rush consumes us.
She looked all around and saw that many of the parishioners were not the regulars she saw every week, although they did look familiar. Some of them were looking at her. They seemed very angry that she'd come in late. She saw the woman right next to her and recognized her. She knew her as her neighbor, Miss Esther. But Miss Esther had died the winter before.
Oh, she's in for it now.
That's when she knew. All the people seated around her were friends and neighbors who had died. She had awoken much too early and come to the church to interrupt a church service of the dead. You can imagine she was very upset.
Did she try to disarm the situation with a joke?
It was hardly a laughing matter. Tildy rose and she made for the door, but they were on to her. They came after her. They chased her from the church and into the graveyard and snatched her coat right off of her, and she ran all the way home. The parson the next day, he brought her coat to her. She'd lost it in the graveyard, but she hardly wanted it. It was in tatters, but she had it repaired. It was her favorite coat.
You stay where you are. I'll answer it and get us more coffee.
Just a half cup.
Chilton's Market on Delaney Avenue.
Lois, thank heavens it's you. I called you at Diana's and no answer. I called you at home and then I tried this number. I've been just sick.
Nancy, don't take this the wrong way, but aren't you in school?
I'm at school right now. Jake's with me. Listen, I really need to speak to Diana. I know how she feels about me and she's probably told you about that, but I'm sincere. I have to find and speak to Diana. It's grave.
What's going on?
Lois, I can't tell you. At least not right now at this very minute. Do you know where she is?
Well, Diana has little love for Halloween, so she left the city for the day. She took off with Donovan Shackelford in his car and they drove to the coast. She didn't tell me where, Nance. I think it was supposed to be a romantic getaway.
Poison to my ears. Lois, I have to go. Goodbye.
Nancy!
What was that?
A genuine Halloween mystery.
A happiest of Halloweens. Who's calling, please?
Mrs. Pembroke, is that you?
Mrs. Pembroke is on vacation. This is Witch Hazel. How are you, Nancy?
I'm fair. Do you know where Diana is and how I can get in touch with her? It's very important. I'm desperate.
Desperate? Nancy, what on earth is wrong?
I'm so sorry, but I can't tell you.
You can tell me anything, Nancy. You know that. This has to do with Donnybrook, doesn't it?
It does.
In that case, my dear, I wish I could help you. She didn't tell me where she was going, only to the coast. It was all very mysterious.
That's what I was worried about.
Nancy, I do believe that Donnybrook will use this seashore idyll to formally declare his intentions towards my daughter. In other words, all hell is about to break loose. Sometimes, child, these things must play out as they are intended.
Indeed. Happy Halloween, Mrs. Pembroke. Jake, if we're serious about warning Diana about Donovan's map collection, we have one last hope.
Dawson, you can't be making all these phone calls from the office.
Mamie, shut up.
Who are you calling?
The Looking Glass newspaper, and its editor, my father. If anyone can track Donovan and Diana down, it's him. Tom Dawson, please. It's his daughter, regarding Donovan Shackelford.